There's a moment in every person's life when the past tries to return, not as a memory, but as a weapon. Not in the quiet hours of the night when you're alone with your thoughts, but through someone else's voice. Someone who knows exactly where your old wounds used to be. It often happens suddenly, unexpectedly, with the precision of someone who has studied your history long enough to know which chapter hurts the most, and without warning, they reach into a story you've already closed, and they reopen it, not because they care, but because they want to see if the old version of you is still there. But here's a question few people ask themselves. What if the person they're trying to resurrect no longer exists? What if the chapter they're weaponizing is nothing but dust to you, yet solid ground to them? And what if, for the first time in your life, you decided not to react the way you always did? Your past doesn't define you. How you choose to face it today does. But let's slow down for a moment. Let's paint the scene clearly. Imagine you finally reached a place of peace, not a loud, dramatic, celebratory peace, but the quiet kind people rarely acknowledge. The peace that comes after years of internal battles. The peace earned through self-forgiveness. The peace carved out of mistakes, regrets, and second chances. The peace you build when no one is clapping for you. You've moved on from the nights you cried alone. You've moved on from the things you once hid out of shame. You've moved on from versions of yourself you no longer recognize. You've moved on from the chaos that once felt normal. You finally breathe differently now. You walk differently. You see life differently. But then, one ordinary day, in one ordinary conversation, someone you once trusted, once loved, once shared pieces of your soul with, reaches backward into a part of your history and pulls something out like a cold blade. They twist it casually, as if reopening your old wounds is just another topic of conversation, and with a half-sympathetic, half-condescending voice, they say, "I remember that. That's who you really were." Maybe they smirk, maybe they shrug, maybe they pretend it's a harmless comment. But everything in your chest tightens, not because the past has returned. You've already survived that. And not because you're still wounded. You've already healed. No. It hurts because now you see it clearly. Someone is trying to use your past against you. That sting you feel? It's betrayal. Quiet, sharp, intimate. The kind of betrayal that doesn't come from an enemy, but from someone who once knew how to hurt you the most. And what's the first thing most of us do when this happens? We react, we defend, we rush to justify. We say things like, "I've changed. I'm not that person anymore. That was a long time ago. You don't know what I went through." We try to explain our evolution to someone who isn't interested in seeing it. But here's the truth. Most people never notice. The more we explain, the deeper we fall into their trap. Because the moment you defend yourself, you've already accepted the premise of their accusation. You've already allowed them to define the conversation. You've already granted them the power to set the frame. You were wrong. You were flawed. You were lesser. And by defending, you silently agree. This is how people lose control of their emotions. They enter the argument the other person designed for them. Instead of responding from a place of truth, the Stoic doesn't make that mistake. A Stoic knows something crucial. People who bring up your past aren't seeking understanding. They're seeking control. They want to watch you squirm. They want to watch you shrink. They want to watch you sink back into shame. They want the old version of you to return, the version they could manipulate. But the Stoic doesn't play their game. The Stoic doesn't react. And today, you'll learn how. Response 1. Yes, that happened. The ego wants to hide. The ego wants to erase history. The ego wants to say, that wasn't me. I didn't do that. You're wrong. But the Stoic knows this truth. What you accept loses its power over you. So, when someone tries to use the past as a weapon, you look them directly in the eye, not aggressively, but calmly, and say, yes, that happened. No panic, no shame, no guilt, no excuses, just acceptance. And that single sentence is powerful because it steals the one thing the other person wants most: your reaction. People who weaponize your past aren't interested in the facts. They're interested in your emotional collapse. But when you remain still, when your heartbeat stays calm, their blade suddenly goes dull. Here's a vivid example. An old friend brings up the time you got fired for a foolish mistake. They expect you to shrink. They expect you to justify. They expect you to explain for the millionth time that you've changed. Instead, you say, yes, that happened, and I learned from it. In that instant, the entire dynamic shifts. The shame dissolves. The control disappears. The game ends. Because here's the rule of life. Once you stop being ashamed of who you were, no one can use it against who you are. Seneca captured this exact idea perfectly. There is nothing more noble than standing before your own faults and saying, yes, I did that, and I learned from it. Acceptance is not weakness. It's sovereignty. It's reclaiming your story. And once you reclaim your story, no one else gets to narrate it. Response to, I've learned from it. This sentence transforms the entire conversation. It moves the focus from, I was wrong, to, I have grown. Because the truth is this: people who use your past against you are trapped in a version of you that no longer exists. They're speaking to your ghost, not to you, like a sword forged in fire. Every fracture in your life has made you sharper. Every setback has made you wiser. Every heartbreak has made you more compassionate. Every mistake has made you more aware. The cracks in your story aren't flaws. They're openings where light entered. Think of Nelson Mandela, 27 years imprisoned, 27 years stolen, 27 years that could have created bitterness or lifelong rage. But Mandela said, I do not hate them. I learned. Because what breaks you also teaches you. What wounds you also shapes you. What you survive also refines you. So when someone says, "How can you talk about love when you failed at it?" you smile gently and respond, "Because I've learned what love isn't. And that made me understand what love truly is." That's not justification. That's wisdom. You're not defending yourself. You're redefining yourself. And that's where we left off, with the realization that growth turns your old wounds into wisdom, and that wisdom becomes your quiet strength. Now let's continue. When someone looks you square in the eye and says, "You failed in your marriage, so how can you speak about love?" you don't flinch, you don't rush into self-defense, and you don't let their words drag you back into shame. Instead, you offer a calm, steady smile, the kind of smile that only comes from someone who has truly rebuilt themselves. And you answer, "Because I've been broken. I understand what love isn't, and what it truly is." There is no anger in that line, no desperation, no need to convince anyone of anything. It is not a reaction. It is wisdom. The kind of wisdom that only comes from surviving the very thing they're trying to use against you in that moment. You're not defending yourself. You're redefining yourself. You're reclaiming the story from their hands and placing it firmly back into yours. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Every obstacle is an opportunity to practice virtue." And he meant every word. If someone tries to stain you with your past, you don't run from that stain. You don't hide it. You don't panic as if it still has power over you. Instead, you take that very same past, the part they hoped would embarrass you, and you use it to show your strength. You use it the way a tree uses its deepest roots, not as something to conceal, but as something to grow from. That is transformation. That is the art of turning pain into wisdom, and scars into symbols of spiritual maturity. Third response: why are you bringing this up now? This single sentence is the quiet storm that disarms every manipulator. No shouting, no bitterness, no sarcasm, just pure, genuine curiosity. It's gentle, but devastating, and the reason is simple. People who use your past against you expect emotion. They expect you to shrink. They expect anger, tears, explanations, excuses. But they do not expect calm. They do not expect clarity. They do not expect a question that flips the entire power dynamic in less than a heartbeat. When you ask, "Why are you bringing this up now?" something shifts instantly. You move from being the one under attack to being the one observing the attack. The roles switch. The spotlight moves. Suddenly, they are the one on the defensive. They wanted to control your emotions, but now they must confront their own motives. They must explain themselves. They must look straight into the mirror you just lifted in front of them. And manipulators hate mirrors, because mirrors expose what they try hardest to hide. Mirrors force them to see the parts of themselves they've been avoiding. Mirrors reveal their intentions, intentions they hoped you would never question. If their intention was innocent or sincere, your calm question makes them pause. It makes them reflect. It may even make them feel a flicker of shame, because suddenly they see the weight of their words. But if their intention was to hurt you, if they came to twist the knife a little deeper, they crumble beneath their own exposure. Epictetus once said, "The one who harms others is the one already in pain." People bring up your past because they cannot face their present. Your growth threatens them. Your healing reminds them of what they refuse to heal. So when you look at them calmly and ask, "Why are you bringing this up now?" you are not just asking a question, you are taking back control. In that quiet moment, the entire balance of power flips, without a single shout, without a single insult, without a single ounce of hostility. Your composure becomes armor, your silence a wall of steel, and the past they tried to use against you loses its weaponry in an instant. We ended the previous page with a powerful shift, the moment when a calm question exposed someone's intentions. Now, we move naturally into the next truth. Sometimes the only way to end the past is to walk away from the version of yourself that lived there. Response number 4. That version of me no longer exists. This isn't defense. This isn't anger. This isn't you trying to prove anything to anyone. This is closure, clean, quiet, decisive. You're not arguing. You're not denying. You're not pleading for understanding. You're not hoping they see your growth or believe in your transformation. Instead, you speak a truth that cannot be unheard. That version of me no longer exists. It's not a statement of pride. It's a statement of peace. The kind of peace that comes from rising beyond your old story. Because what you're really saying to them is you're talking to someone who no longer lives in that chapter. You're referring to a person I outgrew years ago. You're holding a ghost, not me. And isn't that the truth? People evolve, souls mature, identities shift with every wound healed, every lesson learned, every chapter closed. We shed old versions of ourselves the way trees shed old leaves, quietly, naturally, without needing permission or applause. You don't need to prove your evolution. You don't need to present evidence like you're in a courtroom. You don't even need to convince them that you've grown. All you need is to declare, gently but firmly, that person is gone. I'm not who I was, and I don't live there anymore. It's a soft reminder, but a strong boundary, and once that truth is spoken, there is no argument left for them to hold onto. They're trying to fight a battle with someone who stopped existing long ago. Part 4. The power of silence and self-control will now transition into one of the greatest pillars of Stoicism, the strength found in silence. The Stoic understands something most people never learn. Silence is not weakness. Silence is mastery. When someone tries to provoke you, when they throw your past in your face, poke at your insecurities, or push the emotional buttons they think you still have, every impulsive reaction becomes a gift you hand directly to them. Seneca said it clearly: the one who angers you conquers you. You might lose the verbal argument, but you win something far more important: your composure. You might not strike back, but you keep your peace. And peace is worth more than any victory built on noise. In today's world, a world where everyone is shouting, reacting, proving, posting, defending, the person who stays silent is the one who truly holds control. Someone once told me, "You never react. That makes people afraid of you." I simply smiled and replied, "I don't want them to fear me. I just want peace within myself." And once you understand that, everything changes. Because here's the truth no one wants to admit: no one can drag you into the mud unless you willingly step down to their level. Some people worry, but what if others misunderstand me? What if they think badly of me because I don't defend myself? What if silence makes me look weak? But ask yourself, does their opinion change who you truly are? Epictetus once asked, if someone calls you a donkey, do you check a mirror? Of course not, because you know exactly who you are. And that is the real freedom, to know yourself so well that you no longer need anyone else's approval. So if they bring up your mistakes, you smile. If they twist your past, you stay silent. If they want a reaction, you let them see you're calm. You owe no explanation for chapters you've already healed from. You owe no apologies for the person you once were. You owe no justification to anyone who refuses to see your growth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, when someone acts wrongly, it is because they do not know what is right. Teach them through your behavior, not your words. And sometimes the most powerful behavior you can show is the strength of an undisturbed mind. And from that silence, we now step into one final truth. Sometimes the most powerful response you can give is simply the way you choose to live now. There are moments in life when maturity itself becomes the answer. Not words, not explanations, not arguments, just the quiet strength of who you've become. When someone tries to define you by your past, you don't need to fight them. You don't need to correct their version of your story. Instead, you let your present identity reflect who they are, not who you were. Think about it for a moment. We all carry older versions of ourselves, versions we're not proud of, versions shaped by fear, confusion, immaturity, or pain. But without those earlier versions, without their stumbles, their flaws, their mistakes, we wouldn't be standing where we are today. You were once naive, once weak, once imperfect in ways you didn't even understand at the time. But those moments taught you strength. They taught you resilience. They taught you the quiet art of rising again after being broken. A man who once battled addiction can now guide others toward freedom. A person who once failed in business can now mentor hundreds into success. Someone who was betrayed can become a living example of compassion and forgiveness. That is how you turn darkness into light, not by erasing the past, but by transforming it into wisdom. The Stoic doesn't hide their past. The Stoic redeems it. People will try to use your past to pull you down, not because you are weak, but because your growth reminds them of what they could have become. When you rise, you become a mirror, and not everyone is ready to face their reflection. They do not attack you. Because you are broken, they attack. Because you have healed, they attack. Because your peace threatens the chaos they still live in. So remember 3 things. First, acknowledge your past without shame. Second, turn every mistake into a lesson, not a life sentence. Third, ask questions instead of reacting. Let them see their own reflection in your count. That is how a Stoic wins, not through noise, not through defense, but through dignity. You don't need to fight to prove you've changed. Those who truly see you don't need an explanation, and those who refuse to see you, no explanation will ever be enough. Phone day. Someone may bring up your past again, and when they do, you will smile, not out of pride, not out of bitterness, but out of peace, because you will know, I am not what happened to me, I am how I chose to rise from it. That is true freedom. Not forgetting your past, but being at peace even when you remember it. Your past doesn't define you. How you face it does. So if someone tries to drag you back into an old chapter, you smile gently and say thank you, but I've already finished that part of the story. Then you walk away, calm, steady, untouchable, like a true Stoicist. This message speaks to you. Share it with someone who might be trapped in their past. Let it become a small light in someone else's darkness. And if you're walking your own Stoic path, if you're learning to rise, to grow, to reclaim your story, I invite you to subscribe and join this community of calm minds and unbreakable spirits. Thank you for spending your time here. Your presence means more than you know before. You go. Leave this in the comments as your reminder for today. I've closed that chapter. My story moves forward.